in your co-parenting. In your co-parenting. Alafia, greetings, Hotep. You got your Omiinka 7 live coming at you from Omi's production studio by way of live broadcast on Facebook. And we're not broadcasting on speakers tonight. We have a little charging up to do there. But how is everybody doing on the Family Circle night? This is our Friday Family Circle night. And I wanted to get at you to talk about co-parenting. Where are you at in your frequency of co-parenting? And do you not realize there is a vibe and a vibration that we vibe on? And I want to get the frequency right in this room. So I'm going to bring the chimes in. These are the chimes, and you should get you some to help get the frequency right in your environment. I hope you can hear them. It's pretty loud. It's always good to get the vibe right in your environment, because a lot of things can go on in your environment. And if you don't have your vibes right, you can't begin to co-parent. Yes, we're talking about co-parenting. And for all of you family members who have children, you are to gather around, because you might not know that there is a requirement per individual state. I think there's about 48 states that have been able to put the laws on their book that whenever you go through a divorce, you're obligated to go through co-parenting. It is court ordered. And that can be somewhat tricky. All parents do not parent the same way. And when parents have separated and they're not parenting together, they're doing something called co-parenting. And there's a frequency for that, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be on the right vibe. Remember, this is court ordered, and in some 48 states, I know. And if you do not follow the court order, you can be penalized and sanctioned. So I want to refresh some of you memories who have gone through divorce. You probably already know. But for those of you who don't know and who've never gone through a divorce and are considering a divorce, you might want to think twice and think about, how will I co-parent without my significant other? How will I be able to handle my child general activities? You have to have age appropriate things to do. You just can't take an infant and present things to him like a toddler. And there's a frequency, ladies and gentlemen, and we want to get on a vibe that will allow us to be able to flow and transition. Co-parenting can cause a lot of frustration in the family if it's not done appropriately. It can cause a lot of anger, and your significant other and you can fall out even more so. But it doesn't have to be that way. After you get your court order, your lawyer or your judge will explicitly tell you what is prescribed in the order. He'll tell you how many hours, and usually it's between 5 to 6 hours of training. Yes, you're going to have to go back to school, preferably online training. Some people have gone to actually co-host programs where they actually meet in person in the classroom, and there's a classroom setting. How you doing, Claudel? Thank you so much for joining me this evening. We're talking about the frequency of co-parenting. For those of you who might be familiar with it, maybe we'll call on you as in-house residents. Otherwise, I'm assuming that some of you might not know. Now, we've had our marriage class, which was called Reordering the Marriage Vow for the 21st Century for the African Americans. And we focus in on bringing a judge in. Yes, I have a judge on my team, and the judge worked very closely with us for a whole semester, giving 90 hours of her training time to individuals who wanted to be licensed under her. I was fortunate I got licensed under her as a co-parenting resolutionist. It's somebody that works in the courtroom with families, preferably couples, to help them to meet the requirement of the court order. Now, some of those requirements are that you take 6 hours of child development training. And it's not what you think it is. It's talking about you parenting alone, no longer parenting with your significant other. How will you handle the activities? How will you handle the birthdays? Do you realize what's age appropriate for an infant and toddler? Are you up on the outside activities for a child for after school program? Do you take your child to a music class where you interact with that child in music while the instructor gives you various different songs to sing? That would count for credit for you going to interact with your infant and toddler in a circle setting where you're learning how to sing songs and do nursery rhymes with that child. So I want to acquaint you to something that there is something that the court usually sets up, and it is sort of like what you would call a webinar, or I won't say webinar. It is actually on-site program where you can go and get information about how to properly go through the procedures of a divorce. And maybe if you're clever enough, you can get the documentation and forms and fill those forms out, reducing your costs to the lawyer, because the attorney fees are somewhere to the tune of between $2,000 and $3,000. But this will help you out. Your co-parenting resolutionist class usually runs somewhere between $25 and $35. Now, that is going to be a rather lengthy class. It's not something you can finish in 1 or 2 days. It's probably going to be between a 3 to 5 week class, and you are going to be working at your own pace online. Now, co-parenting will help you. It will help you become a better parent. I've gone through co-parenting, and even I was able to learn something in the class that I didn't know before. It is a legal structure curriculum that has to be approved by the judge. You just can't go get any old child development course. You have to go through a course with somebody who is actually sanctioned and licensed as a co-parenting resolutionist. Hello there, young lady. Go live with Glenda Derry. How are you? Let me see what Glenda has to say here. Hi, Glenda. How are you? If you have anything to say, please do. Go back up there, Glenda. I would love for you to have something to say. Now, I've had one gentleman come in to talk, and I have been inviting so many people to go ahead and take the platform, because if you have something to say, I would love to hear what you have to say. We're talking about co-parenting resolution in this class. We're talking about the legal stuff, because once you get through making out the forms and deciding how you're going to split the children up for visitation rights, you also have to be enrolled in a class. And the judge is going to give you an order mandating that you must go to some class and bring back to the judge the class that you have selected so they can approve it. So you just can't go enroll in any old class. Now, co-parenting can be fun if it's done from a perspective that children have to be engaged. You can't just say, I'm going to get visitation rights and have the child come to your house and do nothing and sit all day. Then he won't or she won't want to come back anymore. So have things planned ahead of time. Have things planned like taking trips to the zoo, or taking the child to the space museum, or just taking them out hiking. Have some things that are appropriate. Don't try to plan a hiking trip for a preschooler. Now, you know the preschooler is not going to like that. He's going to say, come on now, Dad. I want to be with my friends and I want to go to the daycare. Then take the child to a music class where there are children sitting around in a circle singing. And you're going to have to get engaged. You just can't sit that preschooler down there and think that they're going to learn all the words. You got to sing with them. You got to be in participation, because this is going to help you when you decide to get your visitation rights, knowing what appropriate things to do with that preschooler. And don't forget, there may be some infants and toddlers that you have to learn to engage with. I know the father's off to work all the time and he doesn't know what mom does at home, but he can get that training ahead of time. So when he gets his turn to visit the child, he has a few things lined up for his children to do. Now, let me set the environment again. We got to get the vibe right. Your vibe have to be right. I'm telling you, if you're angry all the time and you're trying to deal with children and you want to show your best side of your face, and if you're not in the right frame of mind, you're overwhelmed, you go home and the environment is not right, that child's going to say, I want to go home to mommy. I want to go back home with mommy. Mommy loves me. And she's going to think, or he's going to think, you really don't love them. And they're going to say, mommy, don't send me to daddy's house anymore. I don't want to go over there. Daddy has too many things he's doing. He cannot even focus on taking us to the park. They'll tell on you. Oh, yes, they will tell on you. And mommy will say, well, it's your choice. If you don't want to go to dad's for Christmas, you don't have to go. And then your Christmas is ruined. All the things you had planned to do under the Christmas tree, you might as well just count them out, because that child doesn't want to be bothered with you anymore because you failed him. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can get everything together ahead of time. Trust me. You can lay all these activities out one by one and go through them and ad-lib them so that when they come, they'll say, Dad, where'd you learn all these games at? I never knew you knew how to do all these things. Now you're a better parent now that you're co-parenting, because you have a little bit more time on your hand and you're doing it without mom or without dad. Hello, thank you for coming to the room this evening. We want to welcome Glenda Derry, Fennell, and Claudel Roberson. And we have Kwame. Is this Kwame Asante? How are you, Kwame? Thank you so much for joining us. This is our circle time for Friday night. And everybody loves Friday night. Come on, sing it with me. You know this song. Everybody, 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 everybody loves Friday night. Suck it to me. Everybody loves Friday night. Come on, sing it with me. It's Friday night. Everybody, 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 everybody loves them some Friday night. All right now. Now we have to do this sometimes in parenting class when we get parents together. We teach them little jingles so that they can do them with their children. And if you have children at home, you need to think about being a co-parenting resolutionist. You can actually take on some jobs where you go in to vindicate or act as a guardian ad litem for couples. Now, being in this industry would allow you to also work with infants and toddlers who are actually being placed back into the home. And some of you who are interested in these classes, once you've taken your co-parenting resolution, you can also hold yourself out to be a co-parenting resolution, and you can go and solicit for other clients who you want to introduce to this curriculum, because the curriculum is what the court will order. He must look over the curriculum, approve it, or she will approve it and tell you that it's okay to use. And once you're done, you must complete the complete program. And when you come back to court, the judge will then look at your credentials, see how well you did, and see if you've obtained a certificate. Now, this co-parenting resolutionist can do a whole lot of other things as well. Now you've opened up a whole new area of industry for yourself. But the main thing is, if your environment is not right in your house and the vibes are not right, there's a lot of anger going on, you haven't organized yourself in the home, do you think children are going to want to come and sit with you? No, they're going to say, I'll see you later, Dad. And when you get it together, call me. They don't want disorganization. So this co-parenting resolution helps train you to get your household in order so you can do parenting. So you can still see your child. and you're not blocked out against seeing your child. Marriage is a very interesting thing. We were just talking about marriage today with my son, and we were talking about the engagement of having a relationship and how some outsiders in the family may not think you're doing as well with your selection of your potential queen. They may think that she's not good enough for you. They may even think that you should continue to look until you find someone better. Where is the utopia at? There's not a utopia marriage. Marriage, you have to work at it. And when you're working at it, that means it is an all cumbersome thing. Nothing is perfect when you start, and you're not always in love. You have to fall in love. And that's why they said, I'm falling in love, because you're constantly falling in love and getting more engaged with that person, finding more things that you are overwhelmed by. And as you begin to see how you can learn to love that person's ways, not necessarily their appearance, but their ways. They may not have that shapely figure that you've always wanted, or that man may not have, he may not be tall, dark, and handsome and full of light, but he's coming into this effect because you're going to see that person in that light. So we have to learn, first of all, how to deal with relationship. When we're patient enough with the people we love, we can grow in grace and grow in love. But it doesn't always happen at one time. And that's why the divorce comes, because you've fallen out of love. While co-parenting, you may find that can fall in love. I went through co-parenting, and I actually fell back in love with my husband when I saw the way he handled my sons. When I saw the time and commitment he put in them, I said, oh boy, what would this be like if we had another chance? And if we had another chance to carry out the full marriage, would the co-parenting be just the icing on the cake? And I'm telling some of you have gotten out of those marriages and gotten divorces, and then have gone through co-parenting and saw how much you have made a mistake. And a lot of people have gotten re-engaged and remarried. And that's possible. And that is one of the things I push for. If you are not certain about that divorce, and if it wasn't all that person's fault, or if you see a change in him now, don't hesitate to ask that judge if you can get married again. They will tell you yes. Go and speak to your lawyer. We can remarry you. And a lot of people have gotten remarried through co-parenting, believe it or not. But nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, co-parenting is something that you're going to do with the judge. And the judge and you are going to talk about your visitation rights. Do you not know that people kill over visitation rights? They take children and they take them hostage and they don't bring them back home because they're so frustrated about the schedule of their visitation rights. So we want to make sure we don't get into that type of felony trouble. So we want to make sure we understand how long you can keep that child away from home and designate when it is that you're supposed to bring the child back home and have the child at home on time. Don't just go rolling in there 3 or 4 days late and the mother had planned to go out of town and now you are in restrictions. It's very vital that we understand that Black folks think, oh, I don't need no co-parenting. Just send that boy on over here. And time you get in trouble with the judge for doing inappropriate things with that child, the first thing that mother can say, well, that wasn't age appropriate for him. And you had no business letting him play cards with the guys. Okay, well, we were engaged. We were doing something. No, but it wasn't age appropriate. So I want to say to you people that as we look at our circle time, we look at the time that we spend with our wives and with our child and the quality of time. That's what really counts. So when you're doing the co-parenting, you're doing things that have quality time so that there's something that they can write home to mom about or that they will never forget. And once you introduce them to things like that, they're going to want to go back and participate in that again and again and again. And boy, wasn't it great being over Dad's house. We had so much fun. We had all kinds of activities going. He's going to go on and on and on about his experience and visitation at Dad's house. Isn't that going to make you stick your chest out, Dad? Aren't you going to feel good about the fact that your child loves to be with you? And not just because you're his dad, but he knows you're going to have fun things to do. Now, nevertheless, sometimes it's not always fun. You have to get in that young boy's face and talk to him about manhood and helping him to develop and taking him through the rites of passage. Now, that may not be so much fun because you have to tell him, look, you have to get ready to grow into manhood. And we're going to put you in the Boy Scouts, and we're going to allow you to take a couple of trips alone away from your dad and your mom and I. And we're going to give you the right hand of fellowship when you come back, because we know that you would have grown some. But we have got to look at spending quality time with children anyway. Co-parenting is a thing where we see a lot of mixed couples doing co-parenting. Now that you have so many divorces and so many families who are bringing children with them, people are dealing with mixed marriages and co-parenting. It is not a thing of the past. It is alive and well. So you might as well get used to it. And you might as well learn how to blend those families together, because that's what you're doing with co-parenting. You actually have a license when you finish. You are licensed to parent individually alone. But without that class, the courts will not allow you to parent that child, and they might not even give you visitation rights until you've completed that class. So in some states, it is mandatory. Now, I'm telling you what I know. No, I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know, because I was on a staff with a group of co-parenting trainers, and we all were trained, and the judge stamped our certificate with our 90 hours that she gave us individually. There's a ton of things that you're going to learn about yourself as well as about parenting. So even if you are not going through a divorce, I recommend that every individual household who has children take that class. Now, I'm a child development specialist. As an early intervention specialist, I am called by the state to go out and assess teachers and make sure that they meet the criteria for the non-traditional route to obtain their child development license. I help to make teachers and to train them in the state of Indiana. So I'm on call to go out to do the assessment on these individual teachers who are in child development, who are matriculating through a program to take their courses and go out, and I mentor them. I go out and I work with them. I observe them. I assess them. So child development is my undergraduate specialty that I teach at the college and go on call as a visiting lecturer. So child development made me a professor because I was able to teach it at the junior college. So all of this goes together with the co-parenting resolutionist. The co-parenting resolutionist fits right in there to work with parents. And working with parents can be an ideal job in a community. And every community should have a co-parenting facilitator in it to work directly with these parents so they don't lose their children to the social agency. And there's a number of parents who have already lost their children to the social agency. Now they got to go back and take reunification classes. And sometimes the co-parenting is a requirement as well, so that they can get their children back. And a number of professionals sit on boards that we sit on to work with us to make sure that they get that child reassigned back to his home within less than 2 months, or get that child connected to a relative and take him out of the system or take her out of the system, because the system further damaged the child as we leave the child in the system for the courts to not assign programs for that child while they're in the waiting period, that child can become very, very distressed and grieving and need specific therapy. So we have got to start looking at our communities and seeing how we can support the social worker, the caseworker, and getting on these boards and participating to help them to determine how can we get this child back in the home and get the child back within less than 2 months. If not, place the child in one of the family relations or place them with one of the family relatives. So many children get shipped off to another state and to another area, never to see their parents again. And that's not what we want. There's more damages happening to children that are sent off to other states and locations away from their family members. Now, why would we want to tear a family down like that? Is it all for money? And why would we not think that that parent can get it together and you can give that child back to the mother? That mother grieves herself. Yes, she may have made some mistakes and she may have not been on top of her job. Maybe she didn't have a place to house her children and a place to allow them to sleep. And they may have been taken away because she had no arrangements made for the housing. But nevertheless, we're talking about co-parenting resolutionists. Let's get the vibe right in the room, because you definitely got to have your vibe right. And what is your vibe today in your environment for your children? What are you doing different for the atmosphere for your children? Are you cutting down on the quarrel and the arguing and fussing? Because just because you've got a divorce, that does not mean that you can't work together as a team. You can't go on hating each other because you separated, because somebody went out on you. Now you're going to take it out on him constantly. So when you together with your ex, your child hates it because you're arguing all the time. And you know, that is a problem where you got to grow up. You got to grow up. If you saw that you couldn't live together, by all means, release that person. And if you didn't see fit to release that person, then why did you get the divorce? If you're so angry now at yourself for making that decision, then be able to talk it over with your spouse so that maybe if you want reunification, maybe you and her can get back together now that you've forgiven yourself for all the dirt that you both have done. As a marriage counselor, there's a lot of things that we have to hold. As a priestess, I found that my priesthood training helped me to counsel families. I had a ministry once called Family Affair Ministry, where I ministered to couples who were actually thinking about getting married. And I counseled them into the courtship and then to the marriage. And then there were some who were Muslims who were thinking about a second wife and adding her into the family. And boy, was that something to behold. But nevertheless, you have to understand that co-parenting resolution can help you as an individual to better see what it means to be a good parent. I do pride myself on being a good parent. I could care less about all the jobs that I've held. I first have to be a mother at home and a good parent. And that's why I preach so much on that. Our society is going bad, terribly bad, because we have mothers that are out there working and their first job is not their job at home. Your first job should be your job at home. And when you master your home, you have entertainment, you have dinners, and you invite people and show off your home and the handiwork you do at home. I used to do that all the time, open up my home for dinners for the various different people because I enjoy being at home with my child during that short period of 2 years. So I had to demonstrate that I wasn't just staying at home. I was a homemaker. And a homemaker makes sure everything is in order. So when that man comes home, all he needs to do is say, "Bring me my slippers, dear," and let him sit down on the couch and relax. Because you're home, you're managing the home like a business. So it's very vital in your co-parenting that you structure your home like a business and run it like a business. And understand that one thing, Black people are so busy trying to get that next promotion to earn that extra dollar. First of all, we can look into our Akashic records and see that we have the ability to advance ourselves, and God is the one that gives promotion. Excuse me, let me take some water. Excuse me. God is the one that promotes us, and none of this money belongs to us. We're just a steward over all of these things. And when God sees that we are able and capable to be a ruler over few things, he will then grant us many things to be a ruler over. And you cannot be a steward over anything, not even on your job, if you're not on your job at home and caring for your children. I certainly believe that with all my heart, because once that child is sick and he becomes constantly sick, you must make some arrangements so that you can take him out of the daycare, because you know that when he is in the daycare with many children, he is going to be exposed to larger viruses, and you are going to have the earaches, and you're going to have the strep throat and ear and nose infections. You're going to have all that and the fevers. And boy, when they get a fever, the first thing you do is go in and say, look, I got to take off. I don't know when I'm going to be back until this fever breaks, because that is a serious thing. And a lot of moms have put their child in daycare when that child was just 3 months old. No, 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 no. They do not need to be in no daycare. Excuse me for a minute here. They do not need to be in no daycare when they're 3 months old. You need to think seriously and hard about going home to work remotely when that child is constantly having ear and nose, throats, and infections. Excuse me. You need to think hard and long. I have a weak signal here. Oh, just wait. Bear with me, please. Okay, I'm going to lay this down a little bit. But you need to think hard and long before you decide to jump up and go back to work. Yes, you may have gotten a promotion and you finally moved up the glass ceiling and got to that position you want. But that child is much more important. Those first 5 years, the formative years, are the most important years. And that the time you put in with that child, trust me, it's going to show out. It's going to show off when you put them in preschool. All these things that the other children are struggling to learn, he will already know them. And just through passing, while you're working at home in your office, you take 5 or 10 minutes to interact with that child. You begin to teach the alphabets, the sounds and letters. And before you know it, the child is reading. And now he's reading books to you. And don't you feel good about it? So when you send that child off to kindergarten, you don't necessarily have to send them to kindergarten, you know. In some states, it's not a requirement. You don't send the child to school until they're 6 years old. A lot of mothers don't know that, but they're so glad to get that child off to kindergarten, knowing that child is empty inside and don't know anything. That's the worst thing you can do, is send your child off to school ignorant. I don't know. Who's your mommy? I don't know. I don't know, mommy, daddy. What do you mean, mommy, daddy? What's their name? Daddy, mommy? No. You teach the child your name along with his address and phone number. Even though so many phone numbers are changing quite frequently, you still teach them, because kindergarten is no joke now. And being a kindergarten cop, I can tell you better than I can show you. A lot of teachers have retained kindergartners. I do not believe in retaining kindergartners. Whatever I don't teach them, they will learn over the summer, and I offer summer school for my kindergartners instead of retaining them. They must come back to my summer school, because during those summer months, that's when they grow the most. And then if they're developmentally delayed after that summer school, then that's when we consider testing to see if there's a learning disability or differentiated learning. But never tell a mother, at the end of December, Mrs. What's-a-Majigan, I am going to have to retain Johnny. He is just not socializing, and nor is he reading. He doesn't know any of his sounds or alphabets, so we're going to retain him. Do you know that mother sheds more tears than the child does? And she doesn't know what to do at this point. It's not time enough to switch him to another school. But there should be a mandate for any child that has not measured up to the criteria by December that they go to a stepping stone school where another teacher that's an expert comes in and whips that child into shape. And during those additional 6 months, if the child doesn't measure up, then he must come back to summer school. That's when you do your drill, kill, rope learning technique. But parents need to consider if they're not really in their profession and they don't know what to do with their lives, once they take co-parenting resolution, they might want to be a child development teacher. And that's not a bad profession to be in. It might be something that most women are geared for. You can go from a professional position to owning your own preschool in your home. And in setting that up, you don't have to abide by government regulation if you're going to be a school, like a Montessori school. And you can have a full-blown school in your home and make just as much money in the home as you possibly could in the industry. I've seen young mothers open up their daycare making over $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Of course, it's a lot of work, but it is a profession, and they can do that until their young children have grown up. And that's the best way to go if you've got a lot of small children and you're paying out all that money for daycare. It doesn't make any sense. But I see mothers every day hauling children off to daycare, 2 and 3 kids to different schools. And their money is cut in half. They don't have the money that they thought they would have had